arrive at 7 with a noisy dog. They're just,
And in case somebody else is there, they're always like, don't be that guy.
yeah, that's true.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys get a chance to hunt and you get some ducks.
And I love reading about it. Every time I pick up something,
Well, that's embarrassing.
are you doing it?
We've had, I've been at the university a long time. Well, over 25. Yeah. So whenever you're at a place that long, we always take some trouble. But, it was a real privilege to be able to serve as the dean for 12 years and, working with amazing people happening. And I'm really excited about the new dean and where we're going. There's always a lot of unfinished business, right?
Don't go down this path. That's a rabbit hole. I chose it.
Yeah, I know. It's like, we still get that done for students and for the region. And so now I think we have great people that are going to continue that way. So now, I'm hoping our people
You gave us a platform to mention a lot of good stuff.
I think one of the most important things we can do sometimes is help people believe that they can do those things. Because I think we're so, I don't know if it's our honesty or what in this area. We can talk ourselves out of believing that we can move big things forward. And, and I think that's what I hope is, we started some stuff and we'll take our skills and encourage people and add to them and make them even bigger.
No, we watch this so many times. You're inspired. You can park your ego at the door. And it was about those other people. I don't necessarily, I hope we have people like that still.
We do. And I think more than maybe what people think. I mean, at the university we really are focused on doing our very best for students. I think what's changing is that it's not us maybe not enough. Now it's doing what's best for the students and the region and through partnership. We're not going to do this on our own. Kind of to your point, it was time to we have to think succession, and rarely anymore is it just it's all about how do we collaborate to get things done.
I told the producer, I said, we have to start. Maybe the idea on the back of a bar napkin is okay. And maybe it doesn't have to be so long.
Hey everyone, we are going to get started here in about 3 minutes. So if you would like one last beer, so now I hear the feedback there. If you'd like one last beer or want to take a seat, if you're hiding in the corner, I see you and I'll be over there. So you cannot escape me. So I'm really glad you're all here. Back in a few minutes.
you bring? I'm going to turn it over to Kerri.
That's the important part, right?
Okay. Oh my gosh, I shocked myself. Thank you all for being here, and thanks to Schell's for hosting this conversation tonight. I'm Tim Penny. I'm the president of the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, which is one of 6 rural community and economic development foundations that serve all of the 80 non-metro counties in Minnesota. At our foundation, we invest in early childhood, a couple million a year for those needs within this region. We invest in small town programming, small town grants, small town paint, those sorts of things. And we invest in entrepreneurship, which includes some business training and mentoring programs. It also includes 25, 30 startup or early stage business loans every year, some gap funding loans. So we're not the be all and the end all of economic development in the 20 county region in south central, southeastern Minnesota that we serve, but we're a player, we're a participant, we're another resource that can help this part of our state grow. And not every investment we make is like a home run, but we were a gap funder years ago when Angie's Kettle Corn was trying to get out of a garage and into a real facility. It's now boom chicka pop. And so we're involved sometimes in some businesses that really go places. We've been involved recently here in town with Black Frost to help them along with local banks and local EDA and others. But another exciting addition to the economic vitality of the New Ulm area. So that just gives you a sense of a small role we can play. Our motto at the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation is collaborating for regional vitality, which means that we're simply trying to supplement and complement what others in our region are doing to advance early childhood needs and entrepreneurship opportunities. So we also were influential in working with Kerri Miller and Teresa McFarland in dreaming up this idea for rural voice. You know, there's an awful lot of talk about the urban-rural divide. But I think a lot of us can admit that a lot of the media is metro-based. So we thought, why not draw out more of a voice from rural Minnesota about the issues that matter to the future of Minnesota, and that was the genesis of this Rural Voice series. We did 3 of these events last year, 4 of them this year, and this is the first of the 4 this year. And tonight's topic is entrepreneurship, and there are lots of sectors in our part of the state that have great growth potential. For example, our foundation is heavily involved in local foods, which we think can add to the tourism potential of this region. Everybody's trying to source locally nowadays. But there's also an opportunity for people that are moving to rural because they can work out of their homes, and why wouldn't they want to live in New Ulm in order to do that? So we just thought that this would be a great topic to start with. A lot of interesting things happening here in New Ulm, but also across our 20-county region. And it's going to be, I'm going to turn it over to Kerri now, conversational. She's going to kick it off with some kind of a predicate, and then she's going to get you talking. And so I'll leave it to her, but I do want to thank Bremer, and I do want to thank Compeer as 2 of our funding partners, and then 3 other initiative foundations from other rural regions are also participating in supporting these events, and we're happy to have them as partners. So thank you for being here, and don't be shy.
Very good, Tim. Very good. Before we start the tape, for NPR, because all of the conversations are going to air on Minnesota Public Radio, I'm just going to suggest that when you would like to talk, and I hope, Kyle, I think that's a little too loud, and I hope a lot of you will talk. If you'll raise your hand, I will rush over to you with the microphone, and then I'll probably ask your name, and you'll tell me maybe a little bit about your business, I'll prompt you, and then we'll get into. So I want it to be conversational and fast moving. No little speeches, but if you've got a great idea or you have an answer to something that someone else is posing, that would be great, and I will get to you as soon as I possibly can. Any questions? Yes, sir. Yes. Do you plan on swearing? Okay. Because, man, we're going to edit you out if that's going to happen. Yes, NPR, it will be 52 minutes. But the whole thing, I think, will end up on our ruralvoice.org website, and we're also streaming tonight. It's a big wide shot, so don't worry about being on camera too much. Any other questions? Anybody else that plans to curse like Ryan tonight? Okay. All right. Here we go. I'm Kerri Miller. We're here at Schell's Brewery on Schell's Road in New Ulm, Minnesota, with a room full of entrepreneurs and leaders who support entrepreneurship in rural Minnesota. This town hall is part of an ongoing series called The Rural Voice, and we are grateful for the support of our sponsors, the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundations and the other foundations, the Otto Bremer Foundation, Compeer, the Center for Rural Policy and Development, Minnesota Public Radio, and I do have to say Tim Penny, who kicked the whole thing off with a great idea. We're in season 2 of The Rural Voice, and here's how it works. We travel to rural towns in the Midwest. We gather a group of citizens together like you, and then we listen as the citizens use creativity and imagination and commitment to find solutions for challenges that confront the communities. So we're really listening in real time as you solve problems and bring your imaginations and your creativity together. Tonight, we're going to hear how entrepreneurs plant their feet and start a business in rural Minnesota, and then how a community can support that business and inspire more innovative dreamers to follow that example. Because a successful business, that can be contagious. It gives more people in the community a great idea. So I want to hear about that too. Here's why we're talking about this. Small businesses are the bread and butter of the economy in rural Minnesota. They employ a majority of employees here, and those businesses run the gamut, from healthcare to science to tech services to hunting and fishing. But as we all know, and as I've discussed with some of you tonight before we started, it does take a leap of faith to start any business. And since the consumer base can be more limited in a small town, there are some particular challenges, and we'll talk about that. So we're going to tap the experience and the expertise in this room, and then we're going to talk about how to solve some of the challenges, and we're going to hear a lot about solutions. So I have first a lightning round multiple choice quiz. Shout out the answers. I started my own business because A, I couldn't stomach the idea of working for a nagging, unimaginative, incompetent boss. Who says yes to that? Yeah, all hands go up. Just take my word for it. I had a brilliant idea, and I knew my town needed it even if they didn't know it yet. Yeah? Yes? Yeah. All right, I'm coming over here because I want to hear about the brilliant idea that the town didn't even know it needed. You are?
My name is Shar Reinhardt-Kalk, and I am the owner of Holiday House LLC, so I own a couple of short-term rentals.
How did the town not know they needed this business that you started?
I don't know. We have a lot of tourism here, and we have a wonderful community, and I'm just happy to be able to share it with everyone.
Good. I saw Nikki raise her hand over there, and I heard a little bit about her business. It's unusual. Okay, Nikki, let's hear it. How'd the town not know what you came up with, this great idea?
I had the idea, well, I learned in Finland about the sauna culture. So sauna, or sauna is the correct way to say it. And so the sauna culture didn't exist in southern Minnesota. It's kind of like a bigger thing. I call it like the yoga of 30 years ago, of like you kind of knew someone that did yoga. So like the sauna culture is going to be the next big thing. But in southern Minnesota, it wasn't a thing yet. And after COVID, there was so much, we were all looking for a way to connect and be outside, but be healthy, and this is a way to be social and to sit outside and have a mobile sauna unit, be able to come to you and have friends over, and yeah.
You have one in your backyard.
I have one in my backyard, and the goal, I'm a great sauna user. I'm not great at being a sauna entrepreneur, so I got to work on getting it out of the backyard and bringing it to others to enjoy.
I think we should have done this tonight in a sauna. What do you think? That would have been fun. Who else raised their hand? I had a great idea. Yes, ma'am. And the community didn't even know they needed it. Tell me.
Mine is a work in progress. But
You are Trudy.
Trudy from New Ulm. Like many, I have become a pandemic puppy owner. And in fact, part of my motive for moving back to this town was to give the dog a backyard. So when you bring that pandemic puppy home, I kind of want them to be clean. And so I am working on developing a dog wash that would be 24-hour, full service.
24-hour? I will drive to New Ulm for that.
Totally worth the drive for a clean dog.
What's the business going to be called?
Harley's Muddy Paws.
Love it. All right. And how's it going? How's the development of it going?
Work in progress. Trying to find the place to put it.
All right, good. Who else raised their hand? I had a great idea. Yes, ma'am. And my community didn't know they needed it, but now they do.
My name is Bree Tarlson. I am founding a community hub space that I'm going to operate a bookstore out of. But the intent
You are speaking my language, Bree.
the intent is to create a third space, so a space outside of home and work that people can gather informally and kind of combat what you're talking about and having a place to connect. So the idea, it's not just a bookstore, it's a youth center, it's a space for movement-based activity, a cafe, kind of a variety of things.
I love the idea of it. I was just overseas and I saw the model of what you're talking about. And it was in a small town and everybody had a reason to be in this bookstore / community center / center for young people. So what are the challenges to building it?
Finding space was a big one, actually, because of the footprint and the types of things we're trying to put into the it doesn't fit into one category because it's not a bookstore, it's not a cafe, it's kind of all of the things. And I think just trying to explain the story about what it has been a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I've wondered about is when you talk to friends or new people that you meet and you do the elevator pitch, right? Which means you have to describe it in 30 seconds. Has that been hard to boil that down?
Yes, I'm also an introvert, so that's extra hard.
Surprised you raised your hand, and I'm glad you did. Where are you at in the development of it?
I've secured my space, and I'm planning to open in spring of 24, downtown New Ulm.
Have you tapped Tim Penny for money yet? Because everybody should. Where is he?
Not yet. I should do that. We'll connect afterwards.
All right. We have a date. Anybody else who'd like to weigh in on, I had a great idea? All right, I'd love to hear from somebody who is, and Jace, I think I'm going to come to you, who has built the business, has established the business, and is now in that somewhat treacherous shallows of we're trying to build it, we've got it, now we've got to make it work. So tell me a little bit about your business.
Yeah, my name is Jace Marty. I'm one of the co-founders of Black Frost Distilling here in New Ulm. We are a northern terroir-focused whiskey distillery. Terroir is like the sum of everything around you affects what you made, and so, in a rural community in Minnesota, it made sense to utilize everything that we can grow just here locally. So corn, rye, wheat, and barley, it all comes from within 15 miles of the distillery. We also utilize Minnesota-grown oak as well, so for all of our barrels. So
Sounds fantastic. Can I have one now? A shot.
we can go down there.
Tell me about kind of where you're at in the business.
Yeah, we just passed 1 year as officially open for business, but we bought our building in August of 2019, so we tried to start a business during COVID, which was, I wouldn't recommend anybody. Hopefully we're done with pandemics, but yeah, it was, dealing with that whole uncertainty. We just secured this awesome building that we wanted. We were trying to raise money, and then everyone got cold feet. We didn't know what was going to happen, so we.
Wait, are you saying your investors got cold feet?
Well, like when we were pitching to people, and all of a sudden, the world kind of stopped, and so like trying to raise money just halted there, and then when things kind of picked back up again, skyrocketing inflation, I mean, we would get quotes on equipment that was good for like 30 minutes. I mean, it was just like, if you don't respond within the next hour, this bid is obsolete. So dealing with that, I mean, we had a great GC that really kept a lot of that in check, but we also raised money on kind of pre-pandemic numbers, and so like the cost of our barrels doubled in price since we've opened the doors. So that has been a struggle. When you have to buy 700 barrels a year, and that price has doubled. I mean, that's the bulk of our cash burn right now, is just trying to make up for that.
I don't know how you plan for that, but I'm going to come down to a business development person right beside you and ask her, but I'll be back, Chase. What do you do when you have this great idea and a business plan that investors will invest in, and then kind of the world blows up or things happen that you didn't expect? Introduce yourself, if you would.
Sure, my name is Brenda, and I'm from Minnesota State Mankato. And so we've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs over the years, and timing is a big deal, right? Timing with starting a business, and there's a lot of unknowns. And so there are times where a business idea goes south because of timing, and that's hard. That's really hard. I would say too that a lot of entrepreneurs make it because they have great mentors, and they have it's oftentimes, and I mean the Marty family, there's a lot of teamwork.
That's Jace's family. Yep.
And so a lot of times, really, too, entrepreneurship sounds like it's really, oftentimes about individuals, but oftentimes it's about, creating your team to make that happen, because it's really hard to be successful as sort of a, as an individual. And many entrepreneurs, they have a great idea, and inspiring others to come along with them is so critical.
I'm going to come back to, what happens when you're in a rural community as opposed to an urban community, where maybe your customer base is larger and you've got a little more wiggle room. So we'll come back and we'll talk about that in a minute. Anybody else who has started a business and discovered, for whatever, the timing was difficult, inflation went up, your cost of materials increased, how could you plan for that? Hi, you are Jessie.
And I'm representing New Ulm's Own. We've been around for 6.5 years. Not all businesses have to be private ownership. And going on the comment about teamwork, so we opened a retail store that's very mission driven. So we have a complete staff of volunteers that keep the shop open. We sell fair trade merchandise to support craftspeople in developing countries, and the profit from our store we give to support local charities. And so having a team carry that vision forward was vital and important to make it a New Ulm entity and not just a private owner.
What has happened timing-wise, costs, that kind of thing? Maybe shipping costs to bring your goods up to New Ulm?
Shipping costs have increased, definitely. Rental cost is up. But because we have volunteer staff, that helps us a great deal. So, and we have local art in the shop, and our artists have been very devoted, and some of them actually donate their works to help us keep going.
Thank you. Who else has started a business and discovered that the timing was difficult? I'm going to come over to the banker because he was telling me earlier that he invests in a lot of startup businesses. Introduce yourself, if you would.
Corey Merrill with Pioneer Bank. I don't invest, but we do work with a lot of small businesses.
Thank you.
So yeah, we've run into that obviously many times, working through COVID, the pandemic, businesses trying to figure out what to do during that time. It It was a lot. So I've never owned a small business, but I'll tell you, working with entrepreneurs, I can't tell you how much respect I have for those who do. So
someone comes in with a business plan and asks for a loan from you, and you're examining the business plan. What are you looking for, and how are you trying to look ahead to the situation that some of our entrepreneurs got in, where costs got out of control and they didn't expect it?
Yeah, well, first I'll say that I'm always surprised when I get a business plan, because that is not generally, that is not.
Wait, we gotta stop there. What, people come in for a loan without a business plan?
Way more than you would think, way more than you would think. I can't answer that question, but I will say that there are so many resources out there. We work very closely with, for example, the SBDC, with Small Business Development Center. We work with Region 9, SMIF. We will try to get them to work with one of these organizations that can help them develop a business plan, because it does help. It helps them to tell the story. It helps them to see it on paper, to find the holes, the gaps in the planning. It's very important. So we do try and get them to do that if they haven't gone through that process.
So back to the question about what happens when you're in the situation that Jay Smarty is in, which is, I have this great business, I've got people that want to support us, and then, the world blows up and all these costs are things that I couldn't have anticipated. How do you try to anticipate that?
Well, I don't know that you can anticipate a pandemic. I mean, that was a totally different animal. But we do try to look through the financials, and we have experience in dealing with so many different businesses that we can help them find gaps in what they've looked at. And again, going through that business plan helps them to find them as well. So it's surprising. It's not surprising, but it's always rewarding when we have them work with somebody and they come back and say, we're just not quite ready yet. We've got a few things that we need to do to get to that point. And then we don't have to be the bad guy all the time, because we do see that, and we're always hesitant to take out a loan or have them take out a loan on something that we're not sure that they're ready for. So it's a tough thing.
The bad guy being, I'm sorry, we have to say no to this?
Yes, exactly.
How many plans or business ideas do you say no to, would you say, in a given year?
It's hard to put a number on it. Every year is different. But yeah, it happens. It definitely happens. Yeah.
You don't want to tell me.
I want to tell you.
Because it would be too discouraging, or?
Well, I mean, that's part of it, but it's also because we may say no, but it's always with caveats. If you come back to us with these things, we want to work with you. And we'll say no, but if we can work with SMIF or Region 9 to help fill gaps, if we can work with SBA, Small Business Administration, and get their approval to take on some of the risk with us, we as a community bank, this is our bread and butter, is working with small businesses. We don't want to say no.
I'm lingering here because I'm thinking this is one of the solutions that we wanted to bring out in the conversation. So if you don't have a business plan and you need one, there are places to go to get help to create a business plan. Who has ever created, I'm going to come over to you. Did you create a business plan? Introduce yourself, Tristan.
I'm Tristan Blue. I live in Lafayette, Minnesota, and I created Big Hitter Games, which is an independent game studio.
Was there a business plan before there was Big Hitter Games?
No.
Really? How come? Because you just thought, I'll just see what happens here and I'll put everything I own into this and roll the dice. What could happen?
Yeah, basically.
Yes? That's how it went?
Built on a dream. But,
Built on a dream, you said.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about it.
So I always wanted to make video games as a kid, and it wasn't necessarily plausible when I was going to college. But now, fast forward to today, a lot of the game engines and technology we have are a lot more intuitive, and it's a lot easier for a small team or just an individual to build a video game by themselves.
Yeah, how's it going?
It's going good. We have multiple projects, a lot of demos, and a lot of cool things in the works. But I think basically funding and promotion and marketing is one of the harder things to tackle.
Do you think a mentor, which is one of the things I want to talk about tonight, would have been and would be helpful?
Certainly, yeah. It's one of these businesses you don't know where to start once you get into, and I don't even necessarily know how to tell someone else how to get into it. It's just a lot of passion and research.
How about a business mentor, though? Somebody to guide you through some of the things that maybe they don't know the intricacies of, building a video game, but they know big picture, how to market a cool business idea.
That would be very helpful.
So where would Tristan get a mentor, I wonder? Brenda? Yes? All right, back to you. So I think this came out when we talked about entrepreneurship last year. This was one of the key things that came out that we discovered that people didn't think they were going to need and then desperately needed. Can you say why? And introduce yourself again if you would.
Sure. I'm Brenda from Minnesota, and I represent Minnesota State University Mankato, and for about 25 years have worked around entrepreneurship in the region. And there's an organization called SCORE, which is retired executives, which can act as mentors. Sometimes the matching, is maybe a little more challenging. But I do think a lot of retired executives and and entrepreneurs that are maybe later in their work, oftentimes really love working with new entrepreneurs and helping them be successful. So sometimes it's a matter of asking, for that advice. I remember one time hearing from a very successful serial entrepreneur that, his thought was that oftentimes it took a lot of life experience to really understand how entrepreneurship works. And so, while you may have a great idea, I think that point that you made about the business side of it is, very challenging. Was just talking with a former student a couple of weeks ago, and he's also a serial entrepreneur, and he had challenges during the pandemic where 3 of his businesses he had to close down. So he ended up, 3 of his businesses were still operating, but he decided to get into consulting work where he was helping other startups really work on the business side, because he was a very talented person around business operations. So sometimes as an entrepreneur, when you have big ideas, it's also really helpful to find someone who's very operational in being able to bring that side of the business.
Has anyone here ever done that work? Mentored younger entrepreneurs? Yes, sir. Tell me who you are.
My name is Ken Wilmus, and I both had mentors and became a mentor, but my story is an old one. I started my business in 1984 when interest rates were 20% if you wanted to borrow money. And I went to the bank with a business plan, and they told me I didn't have enough money. So I then went out and I found 4 private investors who invest. It's a steel fabrication manufacturing business. So anyway, it's a good thing I found them 4 guys, because it helped me get the business off the ground, and they also served as mentors. Well, now, I've sold out the business a couple of years ago, but I served as mentors to the people that took over for me. I gave them, young guys, company's now run by 40-year-olds, 40-something. So it was a great story for everybody. But I do have another question here. I mean, I counted about 50 people in this room, and I am kind of curious how many are for-profit businesses versus government people or quasi-nonprofits and stuff like that. If people could just raise their hand if they're a private industry, and we could get a count to see how many are private industry people here. You get a count on that? Well, no, I'm just trying to see how many people are here because they're private industry people versus government and or quasi-government people.
Right.
Because this is the people we are trying to help here. You know, we want to help private industry get off the ground. And that's what I'm just curious, who is the audience here?
Well, I mean, what we're trying to do here is provide some answers to questions and resources to people that need them, and experience and expertise like you have. Yeah. I'm glad you're here.
I'm just curious to know how many people are actually business people and how many are here for other reasons.
Let me go back to, yes,
Kind of following up on that.
to Jace again.
With mentorship, I think a lot of, and maybe I'm just speaking from my own experience, when you're starting a business in a small town, it's probably a business that doesn't exist anywhere nearby. And so to get a mentor in a lot of times a very specialized industry or business that you're trying to start is really difficult. And I think that's one of the things I've struggled with is just having even someone to just bounce ideas off, or just that you can relate to, a very specific thing, where in a larger community, a larger, setting, there's a lot of people that might be in your similar type of whatever you're doing. Obviously the internet can help, but like having that personal face-to-face, like sit down, talk, just like a true mentorship versus just, asking in forums online. I think that's a struggle I've definitely faced here in a smaller community.
I think the question then would be, do you need somebody who is in your exact industry? Or can you get expertise,
It can definitely go both ways. Like, so I'm talking to John. John makes cider, so we have similar things that we talk a lot, but there's like general business mentorship, but then there's also like, we do fermentation, where it's just like very a niche type of a thing that, if you run into an issue, you're on an island, and so like not having someone to talk to or work through a problem that might be just specific to what you're trying to do versus like general business knowledge. I guess that's where I was referring to.
So let me say, Jace, and you run the Black Frost distillery is sitting right next to John, who runs a cidery. Okay, tell me what you're thinking about as you listen to Jace talk about this.
Well, I kind of feel bad for Jace because he was a mentor to me. Jace and I have a lot of 11:30 at night text messages back and forth, or after the kids go to bed type of sampling when we first started this whole journey, and he's absolutely right. Like, without his help and his feedback, it would have been really scary to make any kind of jump, because Jace would tell me flat out, like, I smell this doesn't seem good, or this is great, you should go with this. And without that kind of feedback from someone who's been in the business and has that expertise, it really would have been scary to make that jump. I want to make one more comment though too on the banking side of thing. Now it might seem like it was negative to turn down somebody's business plan or a loan, but a lot of times you can turn that around. It's really a gut check. Do I need to reconfigure what I'm looking at here? Do I need to make some adjustments to my business plan? Because it's been my experience, the bank isn't just going to say no and close the door. They want to see you succeed, so they're going to try to figure out ways or maybe provide some feedback so you can make this a successful business plan.
Tim, I want to come over to you because I know you're listening to these questions about mentoring and guidance, and this is something that the foundation does. How do you respond when you can see a business that is in need of some guidance and maybe some oversight?
Well, I mentioned in my opening remarks that the motto at our foundation is collaborating for regional vitality. So in all of our areas of work, especially in our entrepreneur work, we're looking around who else is playing in this arena, and how do we best coordinate with them so that our activities, our resources can complement and supplement what they're doing, coordinate it in the best way. Brenda from the university mentioned the Service Corps of Retired Executives score. And we do house a SCORE chapter at our foundation. They serve Mankato, Faribault, Ellerly, Owatonna, so that's free advice from people that have been there, done that. We also refer frequent loan requests that come to us to the Small Business Development Center, SBDC, because they can help you, again, at no cost, in developing that business plan, because you're not going to get anywhere with even us at the Initiative Foundation, let alone a bank, without that basic document in hand. This is my business plan, here's my projection of income, and here's how I intend to use the money, here's my growth projections, et cetera. So we just try to stay connected with EDAs, regional banks, and others that are in this realm, and make sure that people knock on our door. We're maybe not the right place for them to be right now, but we try to help them find out where to start.
Okay, good. I'm going to come down here to a conversation I was having a little earlier to Melanie. Melanie, introduce yourself and talk about your business.
I'm Melanie, and I am a licensed esthetician. I own Schönhaut, which means beautiful skin in German. So I am actually not a native of New Ulm. My husband is, on the other hand, though. So a lot of my business is word of mouth, and that's how I got started. Is a lot of my clients are from New Ulm, but rural of New Ulm too. So,
did you have a business plan?
I did not.
I wondered how many people are sitting here going, "Oh my gosh, the one thing I forgot."
And now I'm going to. Yeah.
What would that look like? How are you gonna put that together?
I do want to provide more services in New Ulm, and eventually I want to expand like a spa service. Like I want to have a sauna and a hot tub and kind of those things for the community. So
maybe you want Nikki's sauna. I know. You said earlier that this has been challenging because, again, you're not from here, and even though your husband is, maybe there's a little hesitation about what you're doing. What's that been like?
It's been a struggle, actually. I think it was really hard to start off because I am, like I said, I'm not a New Ulm native. I feel a minority in this town. I am, actually. But it's been quite a roller coaster of emotions, up and down, starting, my own business. So,
feeling like, what do I have to do to get them to give me a chance? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but tell me what that feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it. It's been quite a challenge because I do want to be the best, and I want to show people that I am the best, and make everybody feel that they are comfortable to come to me.
That is a reality of a small town, right? Yes, Trudy. With the dog wash, the 24-hour dog wash, I love it. You were nodding when I suggested that trying to start a business in a small town is gonna be, for different reasons, maybe more challenging than in a city. Why?
Like Melanie, I'm not from here. And so breaking into information about property that's available or collaborative-minded property owners, those kinds of things are very challenging when you're always trying to give that elevator pitch about, you want to do what? So that's hard. The pitch is hard.
I sense there's a story with collaborative property owners. Are you having people say, no, I don't want that in my office or business?
I think when you don't know people, you gotta show up in person. These are not conversations to have over the phone when you try to explain a concept, like something they haven't seen before. A freestanding, dog wash is like, you want to do what? Like that's the response all the time.
So are you concerned that, okay, you get the business established, but still you're kind of seen as an outsider? And this may be something to have to deal with.
Dogs don't care where you're from. That's right. So that's right. If you're delivering a service that people need, they didn't know that they needed, and it's convenient and affordable and unique, there's no shortage of people that want that kind of service available. So,
Julie, I'm going to come over to you, and I hope you'll introduce yourself, and then I have a few questions for you.
Julie Tesh with the Center for Rural Policy and Development.
One of our partners for the Rural Voice Town Hall series. What do you think when you hear some of our guests say, I didn't expect that, but I'm encountering kind of who are you and what are you doing here?
I guess it's not surprising. And things are unique to a small town, but I think in society now, whether it's a small town or a metropolitan area, we're online so much that we are so disconnected from one another. And so actually wanting to meet in person is difficult for some people. And I think in a rural area, I grew up in rural Waldorf, Minnesota, about an hour away from here. You know, people still talk to each other on the phone and in person. And if you don't know that person, it's hard. I left our farm 25 years ago and went and gallivanted around the country and moved back here 6 years ago. And a lot changes. And there's a lot of people you don't know. And add in COVID and add in technology, which is wonderful, but people aren't used to that interaction anymore.
What's your, oh, yes, sir, I'll come back. Yes.
Well, I'm thinking that our education system has changed. If you want to be an entrepreneur, it's not a 40-hour-a-week job. You just work from sun up to sundown if you can get it done at that time, and you work 7 days a week if you want to be successful at it. I know very few people that have done a real good job that didn't follow that solution. I haven't done it myself, but I sell real estate. I've sold a number of businesses, but we got a number of businesses for sale, 5 or so.
In your small town, which is?
St. James. But it's hard to find entrepreneurs. They get through college, and they want to work from 7 o'clock Monday morning till 5 o'clock Friday afternoon. They don't want to worry about it.
Is this next generation kind of thing?
So why don't all these people here that promote this stuff, where they can borrow money stuff, teach people to be entrepreneurs? If you want to get ahead, you got to earn it. It's not going to do it for you.
What do you think it takes to be a successful entrepreneur?
Where do you want to work? I built the first apartment house in St. James, and people said, that'll never work. They don't have any apartments there. God, the rent's could be $150 a month. Can you believe that? It was 1970. It worked fine. I built 115 apartments since. They all work fine. But you don't work 40-hour weeks.
Who has something to say to Tom? Julie, what do you make of that?
I agree wholeheartedly. I'm not an entrepreneur, but growing up on a dairy farm, and it's a lifestyle. Being a small business owner, being an entrepreneur is a lifestyle, and you have to be able to handle risk, uncertainty, and a lot of closed doors, a lot of no. And it develops a thick skin, and if you don't have that, that's difficult.
Let me come over to Kathy, who's sitting next to Brenda, who also is immersed in economic development. Introduce yourself, if you would.
I'm Kathy with MNSU.
What do you think when you hear, I had this great idea, didn't think I needed a business plan, now I'm into the middle of it, and I'm encountering some challenges that I didn't expect?
I think it's probably always worth going back and doing the work to make the plan. Even if you're in the middle of it, because I think with a plan, you have a path forward, and you can ask advice, and you can look to others, your mentors, other people who have maybe been down that path before for advice on where do I go from here. And so even if you started down that path, it might be worth pausing for a second to do the work and fill out the plan.
Tell me if this isn't true, and it may not be. Is there less margin for error in starting a business in a small community for a number of reasons? Brenda, you're nodding.
Well, I think so. I mean, your market, is really different. So that may be, reason enough as to why it may be more challenging. If I could, I want to go back just a little bit about the comment about, college students because
Oh, you mean Tom, like this generation doesn't know how to work? Let's just call it as we see it, Brenda.
because I mean we come in contact with a lot of with a lot of young people, and we find that you know you have a whole continuum of young people. But I think one of the things about rural communities is oftentimes, you know, either you're raising really hardworking young people, or you're attracting individuals that do really want to work hard. So we've had a lot of entrepreneurs as students that have pursued entrepreneurship while they're students, and we'll find that many of them work 60, 80 hours a week. They're working 2 and 3 jobs, they're starting their businesses, they're going to schools. So I wouldn't necessarily count out, young people as having, you might not have run across all of them, but I have just a huge belief in our youth generation. The Minnesota Cup, which is the statewide entrepreneurship competition. I mean, they have 2 categories just for young entrepreneurs, and I think a lot of times what young entrepreneurs need is confidence and that mentoring and that partnership to begin what they're doing. But I wouldn't count out the younger generations as not being able to be those workhorses to get those businesses started.
Kathy, what do you think?
I think it's true. I think we see shining stars every day on our campus, and it's exciting. And it may not always happen for those students in that moment when they have that bright idea, but that enthusiasm for what's to come is there right out the gate.
Tom, what do you think? Are you changing your mind?
I'm not disagreeing with them. There's a lot of good young entrepreneurs out there. It's hard to get them in a small town, because there's so many opportunities with a college education where they can go to work for some major companies, way more benefits. But some of them work out good there and some of them don't. When you look at the trades, I think we've overlooked it. We think everybody's got to go to a 4-year college, and we're short of plumbers, and we're short of electricians, and we're short of people just want to run a grocery store or just want to run a restaurant. And we can get them, if they got a little entrepreneur spirit and want to work, we can help them fund a restaurant in a small town, and we can fund it at a rate where they can make a living. But I've got kids, and I can't believe how much money they make. They go to college for 4 years, and they go to work for these companies. That's the end of the entrepreneur. Their entrepreneurship is hunting in Hawaii,
Sounds good to me.
More power to them,
I'm Kerri Miller, and you're listening to a Rural Voice Town Hall in New Ulm. We're at Schell's Brewery, and we have a number of entrepreneurs in the room, and we have a number of people who work on economic development, and we've had some great ideas and some personal experiences and some excellent suggestions about how to bring more people into entrepreneurship in smaller towns. Who wanted to speak? Yes, Bree?
I just wanted to make a comment kind of about, we're talking about entrepreneurs as if it's a college pathway, or it's something somebody goes and says, this is something I want to do with my life. And I think there's what I'm seeing in my experience is that I'm working alongside other entrepreneurs that are in a career change. They've maybe figured out that their values are not being met in employment arenas, and so I can speak for myself. I got burned out working in healthcare for 15 years, and now I just feel so rejuvenated in what I'm doing. I don't mind working 60, 70, 80 hours because it's not work. And I think that's where tapping into a small town and in rural areas in particular, that we can see needs that are not being met, and that will make a significant difference in our community. So it feels really good. It feels different than in a metro area to me.
Thanks, Bree. Yes, we heard about the trades, and I'm coming over to Ryan. And Ryan, tell us a little bit about introduce yourself and your experience.
So I'm Ryan Ott. I'm the Executive Director of Big Ideas here in New Ulm. We're a nonprofit that promotes skilled trades. So we go to schools, we go to industry events, and talk to people about the opportunities that are in the trades, right? You can start off in labor, you can learn some skills, you'll have those for the rest of your life, and then you can start your own business, get into management, the sky's the limit from there.
Do you find, as Tom says, when people find out, how hard this is going to be, success may be a long time in coming, the enthusiasm wanes, the entrepreneurship withers?
I mean, it hasn't been for me. So I started off in the trades when I was really young, and I've had a successful career in the trades, and now I'm executive director here. So working 80, 90, 100 hours a week, getting jobs done for people, I think that I find pride in what I do, and I think a lot of people find that too. So just like Bree was saying, it's not really work for you anymore. It's the way that you give back to the community. It's the impact that you have, and that's what drives you forward, kind of, bringing community together through coffee or liquor or through skincare or through a sauna. I mean, all of these things are what entrepreneurs do to bring their community together, and that's how they find their passion.
Let me come down here to Ian, I'm sorry. Introduce yourself, if you will.
Yep, my name is Ian Bentz. I'm with the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation as well as bank president Profinium.
What do you think about what you've heard about the challenges in a smaller community of feeling like an outsider and the challenge of being embraced, I guess, in a small community that you're not from?
I think that makes a lot of sense, and someone who is from Fairmont and left Fairmont for 4 years for college and came back, I cannot put myself in those shoes. However, over my 20 years of being at the bank, there's been a lot of people that I've gotten connected with that have moved into Fairmont in our area, and they've echoed that same sentiment. It's tough. It's tough to move into a new area and build those connections. And I guess my one small segment of being able to relate is after leaving a high school student or high school graduate and coming back as a college graduate into the workforce, it almost is a different feel, and you play a different role in the community. I guess I had the most success in volunteering and taking part in some of my passions, and then you're around like-minded people with same interests, and then those relationships kind of blossom from there.
That's such a great idea. So inserting yourself more into the community in a way that isn't just looking for customers.
Yeah, correct. Making a difference, playing a role, whether it's mentoring, whether it's coaching, whether it's finding service clubs to be a part of, church groups, whatever your passion is. And generally when you're following your passion, your greater self comes out, and you can have a better opportunity to connect with people and make a difference.
Do we have any entrepreneurs in the room that have not yet spoken? I want to make sure that we don't. Yes, Andrea, let me come over here. Tell me about yourself.
Hi, yes, I have a full-time job where I run a nonprofit. I serve the citizens of New Ulm as the council president. I serve on other boards of directors. But a couple of years ago, I did take a kind of a leap of faith, and I started a 501c3 nonprofit organization as an entrepreneur called the Women's Forum, and it was designed to bring women that are looking to get into leadership roles or are looking to kind of further the education, get some mentorship to bring them together. And things were going so well, and then COVID hit, and we just kind of found ourselves in a position where we were trying to do things online and weren't able to connect in person with people as much. And so I'm in a position where our business is struggling now, just another story of entrepreneurship that gets changed because of COVID.
Right. How can you really couldn't have predicted that? Do you think the business will survive?
I do. Yes, we have some great members and great leadership, and yes, we're going to continue.
I want to talk to the mayor about kind of everything you've heard, and then we'll take more questions. So Mayor, you've listened quite attentively to all of this. Give me some impressions.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. And one of my impressions, first of all, when Ken asked who is in the room, I was as interested as Ken is because being in a leadership role in the city of New Ulm, it's important for us to know the struggles and the opportunities, but I also want to make people aware of the fact that, yes, there's Region 9, and there's Smith, or Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, but there's also the city of New Ulm. And we have an economic development commission and authority that is there to help take your narrative, to help take that dream that you have and turn it into reality. We can do that for you. We know where those properties are. We know where there's grants, where there's loans. We probably can help find you some mentors, some of those gods and goddesses of wisdom, and we can pair them up with people that have a dream or a vision. And I think it's very important that we from the city and some of the Economic Development Commission people are here this evening as well. We need to hear the stories so that we can foster those entrepreneurs, the future leadership in this community. And if we're not sitting in this room listening to your stories, then we cannot develop the tools to support that vision. So I really appreciate being here and hearing all of these stories and the input that we're getting here tonight.
Okay, any questions or comments, things that we might have missed in the conversation? Jennifer? Yeah, yes, sir. John?
I just had one comment about feeling like it's difficult to break into a small community, and I definitely feel you. And at the same time, I feel like there's a balance with a small community. Those are, while it's hard to break into that crowd, they're also the same crowd that's going to stick with you through thick and thin. So, you know, you walk down the street, once they get to know you, they're going to look you in the eyes, they're going to talk to you, they're going to ask how things are going. So it takes a little bit of time, but it can work. In New Ulm, like what the mayor said, we are trying a few things to welcome new families into town, and make sure that they feel like they're part of the fabric of this community. At the end of the month, actually, we're having an event for all new people in New Ulm. They're welcome to come and share some stories and have some fun with other new people in New Ulm through the Chamber of Commerce at the Country Club. So,
will cider be sipped at that gathering?
I sure hope so.
Because what's a gathering without cider? Other questions or, Jennifer, I didn't get to you, and I know you have some expertise in this. What's your impression of what you've heard?
I think there's a lot of things that cities and municipalities can be doing to help entrepreneurs, like whack and sack or zoning ordinances and changing a lot of stuff like that. And part of like what we do, developing blighted properties and then partnering with small businesses to fill the gaps where the banking industry can't, and working with those businesses in our buildings to really make them thrive, because we have skin in the game as much as they do, because most entrepreneurs are not developers, but we are. So we can partner with them in a way that benefits everyone in the community, and so for every dollar that we spend within one community can be reinvested in the same community. I think making that commitment towards really low profit margins and all those other things. So my husband and I ended up doing this out of Faribault, Minnesota, and I started a Gather on Central, which is during the pandemic. I just started, we got a dilapidated building, and we started a small event venue, if you will, and it ended up turning into like this big thing that became a membership program. Then it became an amenity for all the apartment buildings. Then we ended up buying more buildings, and it all just kind of snowballed from there. And now we're just seeing this huge explosive growth in the downtown. So we're hoping that that continues on through other cities. But yeah, I'd say that there's a lot of opportunity that people need to think outside of the box for. Like municipalities are a huge piece of that puzzle.
As the mayor suggested. Other questions or comments or stories? Ken? Ken, you're looking a little like, what do you mean it's been interesting? Like not very.
It's just interesting to hear other people's stories, and you can put that stuff together. I mean, for me, I'm old. I'm not going to start another business now at 70, but for all these young people to hear other people's stories, I think is really a good thing. They can put this stuff together and help them make decisions.
Other question? Yes, Julie. Yeah, and then I will be right over there, and then I'll be right there. Hi, Julie.
Hi, I'd just like to say that it's really encouraging to have so many people here. At the Center for Rural Policy and Development, we do research on rural Minnesota issues and policy topics, and a lot of time what we do is changing that narrative about rural. And hearing so many great ideas here tonight, it's just very positive. You know, we know it's here, we live in this area, but for other people to hear this, so I'm glad that, you know, this is going to be on NPR and that other people can view it, because there are good things, really great things happening all over rural Minnesota, and we really need to promote that.
Those stories really, as Tim suggests, don't really get told that often. All right, there was a hand right here, and then I will go there.
So I'm Jessica Beyer. We're with Greater Mankato Growth, so we serve as the Regional Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Organization. So for our economic development work, we have what's called the Regional Economic Development Alliance, and that's Blue Earth and Nicollet counties and the communities in those. And we work with private-public partners. I think it's really important that, you know, we have a lot of different representatives, and to the mayor's point, listening to these entrepreneurs' stories, learning of how we can continue to build that ecosystem to support the needs of the entrepreneurs. And I think a lot of our work, we have so many partners that come together, whether it's organizations like ours, the communities, we've got Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, Region 9, others, that we're continuing to communicate and understand the needs of the entrepreneurs so that we have the resources and tools, as was noted, to continue to support. So whether one of us gets a question or whatnot, we're finding grant funding, we're communicating, and I think that's the biggest piece moving forward.
That sounds really helpful.
People don't often understand the resources that are out there, and I've heard some of the stories where even through mentorship or what the work of the university, how do we continue to build those relationships within the work we're doing to best support the entrepreneurs?
Okay, let me come around the corner here and introduce yourself if you would.
I'm Colleen Langhammer. I'm the State Director for USDA Rural Development. And you know, we've talked about the great resources that are in southern Minnesota, but we have the state of Minnesota, and we do libraries, hospitals, daycare centers, community facilities, business loans, value-added producer grants. We do about 70 programs across this state. We've got 13 offices, a staff around the state, and it's all about how do we invest in rural? What opportunities are there, and how do we partner? None of us can do it by ourselves. We know that. But what I've found in my time is that rural communities really come together, and things that are possible in many rural communities don't happen in urban communities because those relationships are so critical. So it's about building those relationships, it's being engaged in the community, and it's working together to figure out how we can get stuff done and how we can help each other. That's been my experience in rural Minnesota.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I can tell you were listening really closely to the discussion. Ken, you've had another thought.
I just had a comment.
Yes, sir.
One thing that's great about South Central Minnesota and had been really good for my company was South Central Mankato State College and South Central Technical College. They really put out a lot of good people. We hired a lot of engineers from MSU. They have a very good engineering department. And we got a lot of welders and machinists from South Central Technical College. Very good schools. They're very beneficial to my kind of industry, the manufacturing industry in this South Central area.
That's good. That's really good to hear. I'm going to ask Tim for some closing thoughts, but before I do that, yes, sir, Ryan.
So on the topic of growing a business, a lot of times businesses start off as somebody that knows how to do something, right? They know how to construct something, or they know how to make something. And then that turns into a business. And now it's sales and marketing and the business side of things. And this is the mentorship side. So a lot of times they're very good practitioners, but they don't understand the business side of things. So getting help on that side of the stuff is worth its weight.
Really, really great suggestion. Okay, anything? Yes, ma'am. There are cookies and goodies, just want to let you know. They might be gone by the time we get to them.
And I'm Valerie with the City of Lamberton. And I guess, you know, when you talk about people having troubles breaking into a small town, I can definitely get it, because we all, if you're in a small town, you all know you got the coffee group that's making all the news in the world. But I think it's really just important that a lot of it comes from leadership, as well as that attitude that they put out to the community that, hey, you know, we are looking for new things, new ideas. We want to keep our towns alive, because obviously we're here because we love it. And to make sure that we pass that on to everybody else. And I think, you know, yes, in some ways it might be a little bit more difficult to start a business in a small town, but I think you can find the people easier to help you in a small town, and we're definitely here to connect those dots, you know, and make it work for anybody.
Great. Thank you, Valerie. Yes, sir.
So, Dan Kalk, I am husband is my role, but so Shar owns Holiday House LLC, and we have two properties that we rent out through the VRBO. So in the hospitality business, and what we're talking about now is pretty relevant, because the community about like standing together and supporting each other. And John had mentioned this too. We love selling New Ulm, as we get people from all over the state, really all over the country, as far as Alaska and things like that, that people actually have from Israel and Norway coming up. And so we love selling New Ulm. We like putting New Ulm products in our houses. We like advertising New Ulm. Like we'll put some of John's ciders in there, or you know, Schell's beer, or some of Jace's products in there. And then like restaurants as well. It's a lot of restaurants here are privately owned, and they're entrepreneurs. So we love just advertising our town and encouraging people to go to local shops, local restaurants. And so it doesn't matter where you come from. If you have an awesome idea that people who are not from here want to do, we want to send you there.
Wow, that's great. Yes.
So, my side job, well, my full-time job, is the city planner for New Ulm, but like what Dan's talking about, so we work on zoning issues, we work on city code, but we're here as representing the city. We're not here to just regulate people. We're here to have conversations with people who have businesses in town, and how we should kind of figure out this world of regulation. So rather than us just in the city side creating something and enforcing it upon someone, we actually have conversations and forums and feedback from business owners to develop an ordinance that makes sense both for them as a business owner, but also the rest of the residents in the city.
Anybody I've missed that would like to speak before I turn it back over to Tim for some closing remarks? Okay, Tim, it's all yours.
I guess it's mine. First of all, thank all of you for joining us tonight for this conversation, and to give a rural voice to entrepreneurship, both the opportunities and the challenges that we face here in rural Minnesota. But I think largely what we've heard is that there are lots of opportunities and lots of interesting new businesses that are sprouting here and growing here. I've often felt that this corner of Minnesota is like the New England of the Midwest. We've got enormous tourist potential, and a lot of the business ideas we've talked about feed into that. Local foods typically feeds into that, whether it's breweries or cideries or distilleries, because it's part of what brings people here. And I'm convinced that the more people that visit here, the more people want to move here. And that gets to in-home businesses such as yours in your community. But we also have a strong manufacturing base and a strong agricultural base, and that's going to continue into the future. I've always been amazed at how manufacturing continues to prosper here in southern Minnesota, 1,000 miles from either coast, and 2 oceans away from many of our markets, but because we're good at it. And we've got a quality workforce, and we need to make sure that those workforce needs are addressed, and that's what you spoke to here with your Big Ideas program. So thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for helping give a voice to rural Minnesota about an issue that's important to our future, because entrepreneurs are going to keep our corner of the state vibrant. They're going to create the jobs of the future. These small businesses create most of the new jobs in our economy, support more than half of all the jobs in our economy, and I hope one thing that may have come out of this is just a sense that there are a network of providers that can provide that help. Some of them, the bankers here at the table, but also organizations like mine. We're not the be-all and the end-all, but we can be a helpful partner, and others spoke up today as well. And so just know that there are opportunities here in rural Minnesota, and we want to keep this corner of the state as vibrant as we can, and have a future not only for ourselves but for our children.
Thank you, Tim. Have a beer, please, and our thanks to Schell's Brewery for hosting us, and for all of you who came here with your stories and your experience and your expertise and your imaginations and your creativity, and Ken too, on top of that. So thank you all for coming. It's good to have you here. We'll let you know when it airs on NPR, all right? So continue the discussion.